Thank you for joining us tonight for the Type 9 Peacemaker panel. I have an affinity for nines, so finding nines for the panel was no problem. I just called my most favorite people and they came. I would love to start by having each of you just introduce yourself, sharing your name, and a little bit about where you're at on your Enneagram journey at this time. Just a couple sentences would be lovely. Kelly, I'll start with you.
I'm Kelly. Let's see where I'm at in the journey. I'm still on the journey. I mean, I think that kind of summarizes it. Yeah, I've been doing Enneagram work for 3 or 4 years now. Yeah, so and still finding it just as engaging and transformational as I did at the beginning.
Beautiful, thanks. Young?
My name is Young, and the journey that I'm at with the Enneagram is knowing what I know about my weaknesses and my strengths at a number 9. I'm trying to use it for different areas of my life, like being a mom, being a teacher, being a friend. But I also feel like I'm changing too a lot, even with the fact of knowing that about myself. So I feel like there's some evolving going on, or realization, I guess, is what's going on. But it feels good. I feel like I'm growing.
Thank you.
I'm Ginger, and I think it's been like 5 or 6 years since Jeannie introduced me to the Enneagram, and it's been life-changing for me. So when I identified my number and I was able to recognize, where I need to work more, and like that's been life-changing for me, but it's not always easy. Sometimes I can see myself being, in all my 9 ways and unable to pull myself out of it at times. So it is, like Kelly said, it's a constant struggle.
I'm Denise. I am only I don't know how many months, but it's months that I've been getting into the Enneagram, and I had been kind of on a path of change anyway, and then when I met Jeannie and she did a little staff introduction, because I'd never even heard of it before, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, and then found out my type and read about it, and the more I read, I was like, oh my God, that's why I do what I do. Oh my God. And just being aware of what I do and why I do it has just been such an awakening for me, and has just catapulted me, I think, with change that in the journey that I was already on.
And I'm Jeff. I actually from Kansas. Jeannie and I met at a Enneagram training with the narrative tradition, and so we have that background. I've been working with the Enneagram since 2015 when I was taking a new church. I was a pastor for most of my career, and the Enneagram was an onboarding process of the new pastorate that I was assuming. And so I fell in love with it right away. Kind of using 2 main things. One is in my own spiritual formation to really grasp what it means to be present and to embrace my essence, and what all that means. And then the other aspect of it, we have 5 adult children and 3 grandchildren, and married to a 4 who is a very, very big personality. And so most of our married life, I felt like I wasn't really showing up as much as I would like to. And so for me, it's really challenged me and brought me into opportunity to be more present and accounted for with myself, but also with those that I'm in relationship with. So,
thank you. Okay, so I'm going to do just a brief overview of Type 9. So the inner critic for the Type 9, that big statement is, you are good or okay if you are at peace and the people around you are at peace. And just like with all of the 9 types, the question is, but how much? like, to what extent do you have to be at peace, and do you have to work to make everyone else at peace? And there's like a beautiful gift in that, and then there's the overdoing of it that ends up costing each one of us and our own types tremendously. The type 9 is striving to feel peaceful and harmonious. 9s believe you must go along to get along and merge with others' agendas, and that their presence doesn't matter as much as other people. I can't tell you how often when I'm working with a type 9 and we get to that spot where I say, one of the core beliefs of 9 is that your presence doesn't matter as much as other people's. There's just like a stop moment, and people really take that in and have a reaction to like, yeah, that's been a lifelong message that I've carried with me. The basic proposition is 9s believe that to be loved and valued, you must blend in and go along to get along. Consequently, they seek harmony. They're inclusive, amiable, easygoing, comfortable, and steady. But they can also be self-forgetting, conflict avoidant, and stubborn. Often 9s are like, I'm not that stubborn, and then they live with themselves for a week after hearing that, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm stubborn a lot. The defense mechanism is 9s use narcotization, and it's not necessarily narcotization through a drug. It's the idea of going to sleep to yourself, something that can numb you out. And each 9 has sort of their particular flavor of what they do to kind of numb out from conflict or the feeling that there's just too much pressure on them at any given time. They also use it to manage their anger. 9s are a body type. So 8s, 9s, and 1s are body types. And the core underlying emotion for 8s, 9s, and 1s is anger. 9s do something really interesting with it though, because if you're somebody that's seeking harmony, anger doesn't really fit into that equation. So 9s spend a lot of their energy tamping down that anger and keeping it in. And when it does show up, often it's in the form of stubborn immovability, that idea of like, I'm just gonna hunker down and not budge. Or they call it the volcano, where after all of this pressure builds, 9s can have these moments of like big explosion that kind of shock everyone, because everyone kind of looks at 9s and is like, oh, they're so nice, they're so easygoing. And then all of a sudden this well of anger can sort of come up and at you at certain times. What stresses 9s out? Conflicts, when they or their environment are out of that neutral balance of harmony. I've even had 9s share that too much excitement isn't good either. It's not just the low end of like the bad or the negative, but like when there's too much excitement, a lot of 9s have a tendency to kind of be like, whoa, let's like calm that down just a little bit, like kind of like that neutral territory. They don't care to be put on the spot to have to share what they think or feel. So panels with 9s can be really fun, because that's exactly what we're asking you to do. So just take a moment and realize the cost of being on a panel for a 9. The 8s that we did last month, everyone's like, sure, fine, I don't care. Give me the mic. You know, it was that kind of energy. But for 9s to get up and be willing to share who they are with the world it requires so much for them to be willing to do that. So thank each of you. I want to thank each of you for being here and your willingness to push through the discomfort of being in the spotlight. 9s are also wanting to be seen, but not wanting to be seen, and they really don't ever want to be seen as attention seeking or trying to draw that attention to them. I've heard a lot of Enneagram teachers talk about it's almost like at birth, type 9 and type 6 sign a contract that I will not be conceited. I will not be vain or draw that kind of energy towards me. And another area that stresses 9s out is too many demands, and just feeling like they don't have the energy to meet all of those demands can be stressful and overwhelming. Communication style, and I invite each of you to really watch for this on the panel tonight, because each type has sort of a flavor of their energy. Again, last month the 8s were like forward and loud and cursing, and like, you know, no one was afraid to take up too much space. So with the 9s tonight, I encourage you just to kind of pay attention for some of these themes. 9s are non-confrontational and friendly. They're very other-focused and inclusive of feelings and facts. And when they're talking, you might notice like a pause before the 9 wants to speak. There's that like kind of getting up the energy to share the thought. There probably won't be a lot of like competition. If somebody else is speaking, everyone else will make plenty of space for that. And that's one of the reasons we love 9s, is because they're working to accommodate all of us all the time in ways that we don't even realize, we take for granted. But 9s are always making sure that everybody else has a space at the table. Where they struggle is to believe that they also have ownership of a space at the table the same way. Strengths, they're excellent mediators, caring, supportive, adaptive, steady, receptive, and non-judgmental, in the sense that even if a 9 completely disagrees with your point of view on something, they can understand why you believe what you believe. And then that makes it really difficult, because then even if they're not for what you're for, their ability to understand it puts them in that position again of wanting to avoid conflict and just saying like, oh, well, we'll just go your way. But that's truly an important gift. And in our current culture and moment and time, man, do we need people that can see both sides rather than that polarizing aspect of our current culture. So we need you guys to speak up and own the beautiful space that is yours. Difficulties, 9s can be stubborn, and they tend to do it through more passive aggressive, although Kelly, you just taught me passive anger as opposed to passive aggressive. It's not direct. So if you ask a 9 to do something and they really don't want to do it, the conflict in the moment of saying like, no, I don't want to do that might be too much, but then they'll just like find ways to not do it. Is that a fair way to say that? Okay. I'll let you guys put more words to that when the panel is answering questions. 9s can be indecisive, and I've had it just explained that if you're a 9, if I know the agenda of everybody and I'm trying to keep the peace, man, that's a hard place to be, because I know that the example that always comes up is, if you ask a 9 where they want to go, especially for their birthday, they'll say they don't care or they don't know. But it's not that they don't care or they don't know, it's that they know like, wow, I know my sister likes this. I know my mom doesn't like that, but she likes this. I know that, and you go through all of that and you can't not know that. And the desire to just get along and have it be good way outweighs the personal wish of like, oh, I'd really like to go here or do that. So that's an area that I'm sure we'll get into as well with the panel. 9s can be self-forgetting. In order to do this thing they do where they kind of merge with everybody else's agendas, they go to sleep to some of their own priorities and don't put themselves in the position of being the decision maker or standing up for certain things. I will say this though, 9s have access to right action. And as a body type, there's that access to the gut knowing of good, bad, right, or wrong. And when something comes across the screen of the 9 that feels like justice or right action, 9s will absolutely all of a sudden be the one that stands up and inserts themselves and holds space, usually on behalf of the greater good rather than a personal motive or intention. And finally, they can be conflict avoidant. 9s can put off addressing conflict, which, as they can all probably share, it can also lead to bigger conflict if you don't just address it in the moment. So again, on the panel tonight, watch for the pace and style of talking, waiting for pauses, notice body posture, and all of that kind of helps fill out like a more complete picture of the energy and the style of the 9. The goal of these panels is to allow a place for you to share, but it's also for everyone to begin to make those connections with the people in your world that might be a 9 and learn from what they're saying in order to increase your ability to connect effectively with the people that you love in your own life. So that is the bigger invitation of the night. All right, let's begin with some questions. What do you love about being a 9? What are some of the attributes of 9 that you're like, yeah, I like this part of who I am? And anyone can just kind of share when you're ready.
So I think nines have this sort of reputation, I guess, as being sloth-like, right? Moving slowly. But I kind of like that. I love to take my time. I can be methodical and perfectionistic, and I love that. Like, I love that I don't feel like all this pressure and all this, like, I got to rush around and do things. I love to take my time, and I mean, sometimes I wish I could get more things done in a day, but I can feel like I can enjoy my days, be in the moment. I love to be able to be in the moment.
Yeah. Thank you.
For me, I really love the capacity to hold the different views and not be shaken by it. I love the fact that people feel safe with me. And I've had some really interesting experiences where, like, after my son had ear surgery, you know, they always have the consultation with the surgeon afterwards. So the surgeon comes out, we talk, and then he says, "Jeff, someday I want to do something meaningful with my life like you." I'm like, "Where'd that come from?" Like, you're an ear surgeon. What? But he just like opened up and started sharing with me how frustrated he was with life and how meaningless his career was. And it was like, he hardly knew me, but there was somehow that he knew that there was a safety place. And I've really grown to appreciate that I have that presence with people.
It's one of the things that everyone loves about a 9, just that you do feel so safe in the presence of a 9 because they're not inserting themselves or their opinions or even their advice unless you ask for it with a 9.
We're good at letting people be who they are. Like, we're very non-judgmental, very accepting.
Yeah, being a safe place to land. And I like that I'm easygoing. I think it makes life really nice and easy as well. As long as the world lets me be easygoing. And then when the world tries to not let me be easygoing, that's where my stubbornness and anger comes out. But yeah, I do enjoy being easygoing. I like sitting at the top of the Enneagram symbol because I really can understand like most everybody else's perspective.
Yeah.
I'd probably say like 97% of different perspectives. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the idea that type 9 on the circle is at that very top and they can look down and see all the other types and understand and relate to them. I'm curious when you say when the world will let me, what does that look like? And then what does it look like when the world doesn't let you be that way?
I mean, we live in such a hurry, fast-paced culture in America.
Yeah.
So most days I'm not allowed to go at my own pace, and I've realized that gets me super angry. So, yeah.
And it goes to anger.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then stubbornness. Like sometimes I'm like, no, done. And that's like the falling asleep. Okay, then I'm checked out.
Just check out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a body type, what is it like to have, and Kelly or anyone else, that pressure of like having to move fast, having to go, having to talk, having to like all of that? What does it feel like in your body as a body type?
Sometimes it feels like butterflies in the stomach, tightness in the shoulders, clenching of the jaw. For me, physically, that's how it feels. And just the need to remove myself and just like, this is too overwhelming. I need to go someplace quiet for just 2 minutes, take 4 breaths, and then I'll be good.
9s are one of the withdrawing types, and there's that when it's too much, rather than pushing or fighting or getting all frantic about what everyone expects, there's that, I just need to withdraw. I'm just gonna take myself out of this.
Yeah. Sometimes I have the urge just to get up and leave the room. And I've done that and not know that I've done that. And then other times when I can't leave the room, I'll still just like disappear somewhere. But it's almost like a visceral kind of feel of I'm floating away while I'm still in the presence with other people.
Can you talk a little bit more about that disappearing while I'm still here? Because that is often an experience people have of 9s where you can be at a dinner table with them and forget that they're there.
Yeah. The thing that convinced me about that I was a 9, that Ian Cron's workshop he was doing, and he was going numerically around the circle starting with 1, so 9 was the last one. And at first I thought, well, 5's kind of nice. I like to read and I like information. And then when he got to 9, he goes, 9s often are more atmosphere than they are people. And I'm like, crap. So I knew he nailed me, because there's a sense that I can just kind of really become atmosphere, not respond, just look dead, disappear kind of a thing, rather than being actively involved with the conversation, offering my opinion, my input. And my wife would get really frustrated with me because she would see that and think, why don't you show up? Why don't you speak up? Well, I don't want to impose on anybody kind of a thing. So yeah, there's almost this like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost a feel that I'm just evaporating and I'm still here, but I'm just kind of more in the air. So
I'm so curious for the rest of you. What happens when you hear that description? Is that something you relate to?
Definitely when I was younger, like childhood, teenager, early 20s. Not so much anymore. Now I feel like if I'm zoning out, it's because I'm zoning. Maybe I'm even consciously zoning out, or something that someone says, it could cause me to start thinking about something else. And I could be nodding along with what someone's saying, but I'm totally thinking about something else. And I have no idea what you just said to me.
When we talk about 9s want to avoid conflict, everyone has their own definition of what conflict is. And when I talk to 9s, I'm always like, oh, you see that as conflict? What classifies as conflict? Like, what are the things that start to send off those bells and whistles for you of like, this is conflict?
Too many people to please, too many opinions that I have to take into consideration. Not wanting to hurt other people's feelings or let other people down or feel like I will lose a connection with them because I disagree with them.
Yeah, for me, if I sense that my opinion or my presence or even my needs might inconvenience the other person, that feels like conflict to me.
To piggyback on that, more of they're not interested.
Yep.
I don't really. Why would they?
Right. I'm not interested in me. Why would they be interested?
Right. So I would actually just be quiet and just listen to everyone. Yeah. And if there's just even, it actually has to hit me really hard if I want to say anything. And it usually has to do with something I'm really passionate about, like if it has something to do with being honest and being fair or being kind, or like during things that rile me up, I'll speak up. But the rest of the stuff, I'm just like, okay, I don't really think I have anything to offer.
I like tension is conflict to me.
Tension, just even tension.
That's just even tension, and I will sense it immediately in somebody's body presence.
Uh-huh.
And I will like almost take it on until it's settled. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 9s have a really good, just a good sensitivity to body language. Like we can, an eyebrow raised, mouth twitched. We somehow we can sense other people's needs and feelings and opinions, and it causes conflicts.
That reminds me of when we were up here before. There's always a scanning going on. Like I'm trying to read the room and trying to read the people, and like what you're saying, we pick up on those vibes.
And that's actually one of the things I love about being a 9 is that I'm able to, because I do Reiki and healing touch on people, and it's really, really handy to be able to just read their energy and being a calming presence for them too. It's truly a gift, which is just wonderful.
For all of us, our type structure comes online and really supports us as children. If you think about being young, you have limited control, limited power. And so for the 9s, from the time they're itty bitty, they have this ability to sense, oh, mom's a little bit upset, or oh, I'm noticing that there's this going on in the house. And nines have talked about, I'll just make myself smaller, and that will relieve some of the burden of the stress, of the energy that is going out into too many places. A nine once shared, like, this never actually happened, but my vision of myself as a child is being in a corner and tucking myself in to make myself really small. And so many moms of type nines will say, oh my gosh, when they were a baby, I could just put them on a blanket in the middle of the room for hours and they were fine. They didn't have these demands or these needs that all the other kids in the house had. One of the things that a nine explained is the idea that I made myself small in hopes of making enough space in the family system that someone would see me through all that space and come find me and get me. I'm wondering for you guys how
Mine
that...
kind of came through the back door with that, because when I was 3 months old, I got spinal meningitis. And so I became the focal point of my family, and I was the youngest at the time. And I always had this sense that I'm causing disruption, I'm causing trouble, so hurry up and feel better, tamp that down so that I won't be an inconvenience to everybody. And I can think of like specific incidences where that was reinforced, and I would get that feedback from my older brother and sister that I was an inconvenience. So I was always trying to play that down, to the point I'd go to a doctor's office and try really hard not to cough because I might inconvenience or draw attention, and just always trying to suppress the physical pain I was in. And that's still, I still do that today at 64. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, that sense that I want to withdraw, play small, so I'm not taking up too much space.
How about the rest of you? Is there a connection to that idea, Denise?
Yes, but for me, kind of a different way of looking at it. I grew up in a very violent household. So for me, staying small was
Protection.
kind of exactly, it was a protection thing. And I can remember like crawling behind, either under the bed or behind a dresser or something, just hoping that I would be small enough not to have something happen.
I think I did that too. I had my parents. My dad was an alcoholic at one point, and very mean to my mom, and they would fight a lot. And so I can totally relate to that. But there's also times where I try to diffuse the situation. So when mom and dad were having an argument, and my dad was really being loud and yelling at her, I wanted to get in between them to protect my mom and to kind of comfort her, because I felt like she was being the one that was attacked, and I wanted to protect her. I felt like I wanted to protect her, or I bring food to them, or do something to alleviate the situation.
Exact same situation for me too. A very very violent family. A lot of yelling and fighting, and I was the oldest, and there were also times though that I had to stand up for my mom, and like that, okay, now this is a sense injustice, I'm gonna, like, this is not okay, even though I'm this 9-year-old girl, like, you can't talk to her like that. But yeah, just if I don't need anything, and if I just merge with everybody else, that's a little less tension in the house.
Yeah.
And that was every day of childhood.
And that's that 9 connection to right action of, I'm going to make myself so small, but man, if there's a dutiful justice thing that calls me forward, I will put myself in harm's way. I will stand up to anybody. And that's so beautiful. And you hear in these stories the gift of the type, right? Like, I don't have control of the situation, but wow, if I can make myself small, I feel like I can control it a little bit in my own little world. And we continue to rely on these patterns as we grow up. And then we get stuck in them when we're no longer the little child in that situation and we have all these other resources and options. We're so wired into these behavioral patterns because they served us so well. And whenever I'm working with clients, a big part of it is the gratitude for our type structure, for stepping in to help save us from overwhelm and from the difficult things. And I want to stress too that the environment doesn't create the type. You come into the world with your type, and then that's how you negotiate the environment. So if you have several siblings in that same environment, you know, one might be like right up in it with the mom and dad fighting just as much as they are. One might be like, screw it, I'm out of here, and go do their own thing somewhere else. And so it's that 9 that's sensing all of this and even feeling like the shock waves in the environment before anything even happens, that knowing of like the energy in the house. That's that body type sensing all of that through their body. And then starting the process of, okay, I can withdraw and disappear. I've been taught that 9s as children in that space, when they are withdrawn, they kind of go into like a fantasy space of like the ideal family or the magical and the prince or the princess. And I'm curious for any of you, where do you go, or where did you go even as children when you withdrew into that small tucked in space?
I had imaginary friends.
Good.
And they were probably my alter ego. They were big, but they were safe, and there was no pain there. And then as an adult, pastoring and dealing with conflict, often I would like deaden it within myself. But then when I was mowing, I had a huge yard back then. It took me like 2 or 3 hours to mow, but I kind of liked it because the whole time I was having imaginary conversations with all the people I was pissed off at. And so yeah, that whole imagination's been huge for me.
I think I got lost in stories. So my own, reading, history, TV and movies. So just, yeah, stories.
Yeah, the stories. Can you guys talk a little bit about that feeling that 9s have that their presence doesn't matter as much as other people's? Where does that show up for you, and what is that like in discovering your Enneagram type and kind of learning that language around that for you?
There's lots of ways where it shows up. One of the ways, though, that's really prevalent is kind of like what you were saying, going out to dinner thing, or just anticipating anything. I always think about everybody else's needs, wants, opinions, wishes, and no one does it to me. Even though I'm silently doing it, and if I suggest we do something, you won't know that it's not really what I want to do. But I just have the superpower. And before the Enneagram, I didn't realize it was this special thing that 9s have that not everybody else had. So I just thought, well, I guess I just don't matter to anybody else because no one ever considers my opinions or points of view.
That is such a key point for the type 9. There is this gift of like reading the subtext and knowing what everyone wants and keeping a log of that and having all of that available. Oh, she's gluten-free, so we shouldn't go to the bakery for her birthday, or like all of that the 9 has and is adjusting themselves to accommodate. And for all of us in our type structure, we don't realize other people don't have some of the things that we have on board. So there's this belief that everyone around me is able to read all of those subtle things and store them as well. And if my presence mattered, they would do those things. They know them, they're just not doing it because I don't matter. Yeah, Ginger, you were really instrumental in helping me understand that aspect of it. Yeah, Jeff.
For me, it's the most prominent area is in my marriage, because as a 4, my wife is very expressive about her needs, what she's feeling. It's all running commentary. And so there's often this sense that my presence, not so much it doesn't matter, it's not as important as hers. And so I'm always kind of deferring to that. And that's where I kind of merge. But there's a sense that, yeah, my opinion, my desires, my whatever agenda isn't the important thing here.
I have to agree, being married to an 8 with a big personality as well, and who's very driven, it was easier for me to merge. And as I'm maturing and kind of figuring out and being on this journey that I'm on, I'm less so, would you say?
You stand up for yourself more.
Yeah.
Something I never
And
even knew I was doing
Right. Yeah.
wrong, whatever.
Well, yeah, and I would say the same. As I've come to know the Enneagram, that has really shifted in our marriage, and it's been a great gift.
Yeah, it has been.
For both of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
truly, because I would hold resentment and be like,
Yeah.
why does it always have to be me?
I was resentful. I didn't know it. I just tamped that
Well,
down
that
too.
was the thing too about the 9s that was just so, I don't know, like, is that how much anger we hold in us and just not recognizing it. And for me lately, since learning that, I've really kind of turned my eyes inward to see, okay, this is a situation. I would either ignore it or go do something else or whatever, but what if I just sit here and feel the anger? And I realize I do react in anger. And so we were just having a conversation over the weekend. I couldn't believe how angry I was, not at Jim, for Jim. And I was livid. Like, I'm just like, I want to call that person. I want to yell at them. And I'm like, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you would never in a million years yell at somebody. What are you thinking? But I was so angry.
I had a really young, like a 18 years old 9 explain that so much of the anger is around this presence not mattering, in the sense that I'm angry at myself for letting my presence not matter, and I'm angry at all of you for letting my presence not matter. Kelly, can you speak to that a little?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like this core belief that even here, like, take me out of the room, you're not going to miss anything here that I bring, right? And at the same time, I think I manufacture my presence not mattering, and I have to be very aware of that. Now that I know that, I can make different choices, right? So I am in the middle of 3 daughters, and they're both married. We have big family gatherings when we're all together, and I will, like, in a low tone, make a comment that's always rather funny, and nobody will hear that, but then the person next to me will repeat it loudly and they'll get the big laugh.
Yeah.
It's like that. So really, I manufactured my presence not mattering by not making sure I was heard.
Yeah.
Right, so.
What is that about? Is it taking up too much space, or what are the things that cause you to take yourself out of the equation?
I think so. I think it's I don't want to take up too much space because I don't want to take from anybody else. And knowing doing all this work, realizing that that's not a thing. Space is just space. And there's plenty of space for everyone. And it's not limited.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't have to limit myself. Me going, I'm not going to push into somebody else's space. That's just not kind of at our core nature, right? So trusting that and trusting just to then stand in that space.
Yeah. In that idea of taking up space, that's one of those subtle things that come out around being a body type. It's the difference between like connection and belonging. It's the idea of the physical space as a body type. There's such an awareness of presence and body and here, and wanting to not take up too much space. And so it's just such an interesting, that's how it shows up. That idea of I don't want to take up too much space, but that's not a thing. Mm-hmm. There's space everywhere. Like there's so much space. And I, for one, and I like have personal relationships with each of you and love you, always want more of you, always want you to fill up more, like take it all up. I am like in love with how you hold space when you do show up. And I know so many people in the lives of 9s want the 9 to show up more.
My dad was a 9, and there was always this longing that he would take up more space and make his presence more known. Super nice guy. I mean, you can't ask for a nicer guy than my dad. But there was always this longing. And so my friend, his dad died, talked about his grieving about, I lost my best friend, and we had all these conversations. And I began to grieve because I never had that with my dad. And when he died, I can't say that I've missed him a whole. I mean, I miss him, but I don't miss him because I never felt like he took up a lot of space in my life. I wanted him to assert himself and be in that space. But then I reflect and I think, oh my God, am I doing that for my own kids? And how am I taking up space in their life that they're really longing for? And I don't know what kind of grade I would give myself at that, to be honest. I hope I am.
I'm noticing emotion coming up with that, and
What's that?
I'm noticing emotion coming up with that.
Because I realized that that's a real blind spot, I think, for me. And I probably don't take up as much space in their lives as they would like for me to do. And then it's like, do I know how to do it? Like, where's the manual?
How about the rest of you around that? What comes up?
My mom was a 9, and I definitely agree with what you said. Your dad wishing that he took up more. My mom, I wish that she would have had an opinion or an idea, or just, I feel like she didn't even have a life of her own. She basically just kept the peace and made herself invisible. I don't think I've been doing that. My husband, I wish he could have come tonight because he would probably, he often doesn't see this side of me. I guess I feel so comfortable and connected to him that I don't have to use my 9ness. I'm definitely a force in my own house. I'm definitely the princess. I have 3 boys and my husband, and I think that I take up a lot of space. But I wish that my mom took up more, for sure.
And for all of us, as we learn this stuff, and I've had conversations with so many of you about, there's almost like a burden that comes up when you know your type so well of like, oh, I can see myself doing this thing that I do, and I don't want to do it because I can see it. But there's also a space for grace to enter in and say, oh, like, thank God I can do this thing. Thank God I have this capacity to shield myself or protect myself. And just be more compassionate with ourselves in the choice to allow the type structure to remain and protect us when it serves us well. And really all of the Enneagram work is around that key thing of gaining the ability to choose when you allow the type structure to run the show, and when it's like you are consciously choosing, like, yeah, I'm gonna let my 9 be 9 right now because that's the best thing for everyone and it makes me feel okay in this moment. But then when it's not serving you, to have the capacity to recognize it and say, I want something else. And Jeff, I appreciate what you just shared about, I don't even know what that would look like, right? I'm a 7, and it can be emotionally repressed. And I had my therapist ask, well, how do you meet your husband's emotional needs? And I had that moment of like, oh, and then I was like, oh God, wait, what are emotional needs? Like, I don't even know if I know what that is to know how to do it differently. And so for all of us, that's just part of the journey. And that's where knowing other types can be so beautiful, to invite other types to say, okay, my friend that's a whatever, a 2, what is emotional needs and like how do I meet them, and working together to support and strengthen each other.
Jeannie, can I speak to that? So, like Suzanne Stabile would say that our repressed centers are the most innocent pieces of us. So it can come out, and we'll just fumble all through it, right? Because it's like we're kids learning to do it. But it's also the most pure place of ourselves too. So to let that out, like for anybody, right? For yours, it's feelings. It's the most innocent, pure. And when you're emotional and emotive, it's beautiful and pure essence coming out. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it's an incredible thing to be able to ask the people in your life to support you in some of these areas of growth by acknowledging, I'm trying some new stuff here. Like for the 9, I'm gonna try to insert my opinion more, and it's gonna be kind of messy and awkward because I don't know how to do that well. So can you support me in that? Can you be part of that learning with me? Can be really useful. What helps you to show up, to insert your presence? What helps you to do that?
I think being in a situation where I'm very passionate about something, that for me, I think that's the biggest.
Because it's a risk. It's risky.
One thing I've been working on, realizing that we're so all about creating harmony. And harmony is the blending of all the voices. And what I recognize, I don't know who brought this up, but so often the missing voice is mine. And we can't really have harmony if I'm not giving my voice. It has to be there to blend in. And so it's really kind of become an intentional thing for me to insert myself into the relationship, the conversation, and not just find the comfort zone of pulling back and withdrawing, but to actually stay in it and put it out there, offer it, and let the adventure begin and see where it goes. So.
How can the people in your life support that for you? If people are watching this and wanting to know how to help a 9 find that space, find their voice, what can we do to support you in that?
I think I have to believe that they are authentic in wanting to know what I think or how I feel. Because I think we all go through days where people will ask you, how are you doing? How's your day? And they're just questions just to connect with people. But, I kind of just like, oh, it's fine, But I had to learn a hard lesson. I think I said something to this effect where when I first became a teacher and the teachers would, the older teachers would pass the hallway, they're like, hey, young, how are you doing? And I'd get into a story and tell them, and then I learned that very quickly that, no, they don't want to hear anything that you have to say. Like, they just want to say that and walk on. And because I approached that as in an innocent way, and then when I learned my lesson, I retracted big time. I was like, I'm not saying anything to anyone. I'm not going to waste my time because they're not going to really care. I sense the body language, like we can pick up on, when I scan, I pick up on the energy, and if their energy, convinces me that they actually are interested. So it's like a lot of the body language, the eye contact, the questioning, then I'll open my heart up, like you do. You look at it.
And if someone notices something, like, oh, this is, if they just notice something that we like or don't like and remember it, like, that's huge. Like, oh, I mattered to you.
If they actually remember what you said. That's true, very true.
I find it, I know sometimes we don't like to be put on the spot, but sometimes it's helpful for me to be put on the spot and to take that as an opportunity to push myself. So some people around me, the close ones, it's helpful for me if they ask me intentional questions to draw me in if I'm not. But then when they ask to pause long enough for me to formulate I'm not just going to throw stuff off the cuff. It's going to be, thought through. So if they don't if they don't pause long enough for me to answer, then I take it as they're really not interested. So it's not worth it. Yeah.
This is such a big deal, and especially for assertive types, 3s, 7s, and 8s, our energy and pace in a conversation is so fast and so like move forward. And I have anxiety when there's so much of a pause that I feel like, oh, don't worry, I can cover us. I can take care of this. I'll fill that space. And I'm learning like, no, the pause, if you can wait out the pause of a 9 or a 5, oh my gosh, like the most beautiful offering is after the pause, but so many of us miss it because we insert ourselves into the pause in order to keep things moving along.
Yeah, we're working the pause.
You guys are way working the pause.
You're like, well,
So if you have a 9 or a 5 in your life, oh my gosh, almost make it a challenge for yourself to like, I will not be the next person to speak. I'm gonna wait and let enough space go by for them to speak, and just start to see what offering comes up after the pause.
Well, I have to confess, if I feel like what I have to say is important for what they're talking about, like something like you had said, being passionate about something, about justice or doing the right thing, I will speak up. But the whole time, because this happened every single time, like, when I was in a peer prayer group, I would just sit and stew, and sometimes I had to block out what everyone else was saying because I was so concentrating on, okay, do I say it? Do I speak right now? No, I'm just gonna be quiet. No. Well, no, and this whole like talking to myself of trying to build myself up to actually say something that I think even has any meaning to anyone. It's like an inner battle that I would have, and then finally I would speak up. And I'm like, oh, finally, I feel better now. I did it, But that inner struggle of putting myself out there, was very real.
Yeah, and I'm hearing messages of the inner critic, like nobody cares, and that. What are some of like the best playlist of the inner critic for you? What are some of those phrases that come up to get you when your inner critic is online?
I think it's all a version of you don't matter. What does it matter? Does it matter either way? Show up or don't show up? Will anybody care? Will anyone notice?
Will anyone agree? Because that puts value, I think.
Yeah, or conflict if they don't. Yeah.
I think it's not worth the cost of the possible conflict.
Oh, there you go.
it's more important for the other person to be heard and have center stage in me. For me to throw another layer on top of my 9 was my whole Christian paradigm of putting other people first, all of that. So it's just like it got
Being humble.
reinforced, be humble, be a servant. Yeah, and so learning how to discern what's legit with that, but then what's just my shadow of that's just my easy cop-out kind of thing.
One of the things that I'm working with a lot right now is the idea that there are so many of those core messages of our type that feel like the voice of God.
Oh, yeah.
That it is like so linked to our survival that it doesn't feel like, oh, that's a thought I had. It feels like direct knowing. And using the Enneagram and understanding your type and the common messages and all of that in order to buy yourself some ability to discern. Like, oh, that sounded like the voice of God, but that also really lines up with all of my stuff. So let me sit with it for a minute and really kind of try to discern that for myself. I'm curious if you would like to share just some of the growth that you've experienced. If people are listening to this and are kind of new to their type, what are some of the areas that the Enneagram has really helped you to grow, or what are some of the practices that you've incorporated?
For me, it's been that whole, the virtue of right action, and really keeping that to the forefront of my thinking of what is my right action here? What's the courageous step to take? How do I push in, lean into my type? And it's easy, for me as a 9, it's easy to spiritually bypass because I've got verses to justify why I'm going to be peaceful and all. But blessed are the peacemakers after all, for God's sake. Yeah, like, and so to say, well, maybe the peacemaking here is to really address this. And again, go back to that. We can't have harmony if I leave my voice out. So for me, it's almost like holding myself accountable that not to assert myself and insert is really my way to live in fear and chicken out and cheat the world and myself of the gifts that I've been given. And so, like, okay. And I feel like I'm so much better or aware of that now at this stage than I would have been even 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. One of the ways that Jeff is allowing his voice to matter is he has his own podcast called 9 Lives. And so that would be a great thing for people to check out and learn more.
For me, it's been learning how all the personality numbers are interconnected, and where the whole concept of where one is weak, the other is strong. And I've learned that my number is important, that it is needed. And I think coming also to this group has supported that and supported my feeling of being an integral part in like all of us coming together, and how beautiful that looks if we just made space for ourselves through other people. And I think that's what it was always meant to be. But we've somehow just went a different path, and it was all for ourselves and protecting ourselves. And instead of like working together to be whole. Yeah. So with all the quirks that I have, and there's a lot of baggage, I finally feel like I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. Because there's other people around me, and they know me. They know the fact that we all are learning about each other's numbers in itself is already making a difference. So
I've grown in so many ways. Probably the biggest way, though, and the way that I'm still struggling with, is just being aware of where I get stuck. I've struggled my whole life to feel loved and accepted by my dad and my mom, mostly my dad, and I've gone years not speaking with him, but deep down I want to be loved and feel loved by him, and he continues to hurt me all the time. I haven't seen my parents in a couple of years. They live in Utah. They have a cattle ranch, and they don't have a lot of time. They are very busy, and I just found out that they're not coming out here to visit like they were planning on coming out. They haven't seen their grandkids in 2 years. And I took that information from them over the phone, and I totally understand. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I get it. And I got off the phone and I cried, and then I was mad, and I was so mad. And I'm so mad, but I'm not going to tell them that I'm mad. I'm not going to tell, only a couple people, my husband and Jeannie, that I'm mad. I don't know what to do with it. What do I say to my parents? Do I tell them that I'm mad? And so anyway, my previous self, before knowing the Enneagram, I'm just not going to talk to them. I'm just going to cut them out of my life, and I can go 5 years and not speak to them. But the whole time, it's just this anger that doesn't go anywhere. So now I know that. How do they know that I'm upset? I talked to them on the phone. Like, I completely understood them, but it hurt me on the inside, and I'm struggling with, like, how do I let them know that without bringing up too much conflict? Like, I don't want to create conflict. So I just recognizing that struggle, and then also knowing that the pattern that I naturally want to get into is the one that's going to keep me stuck and is going to keep me feeling this way. So just knowing that there is a different choice.
And for me, I realize in that while I want people to take me seriously, I teach them not to, because I really don't show up. Or I underplay it so much that they don't really get how important that is to me. And then my anger is not so much at them now, it's on myself for kind of throwing myself under the bus. But yeah, I get it. Yeah.
There's the tendency to remove even the option of letting somebody else show you that your presence doesn't matter, because I've already pulled myself out of the equation.
Made that decision for you. Yeah.
And then like the beautiful and hard road is how to re-engage in that conversation, working through the anger, and often what's underneath the anger is grief. And so being able to make contact with that space of grief and have the connection through that, of acknowledging and sharing, like, I actually do really want you here and I love you. So thank you for sharing that. It's so helpful to have such a practical, real life example of how it's showing up in the work that you're doing in that. It's incredible.
A lot of my work has been letting myself matter here first, and loving myself in that way. I think a lot of it too is engaging in the present moment, instead of more living in the resignation of the past and letting that paint my future. But if I stay engaged, that's my work. Engaging in this present moment, right here, right now. And when I do that, then I can engage with myself, what I do truly want, letting this presence matter, and move forward. And embracing all the feelings, all the things. So embracing anger, embracing the more intense, what feels like intense emotions to me. Because when you embrace, like I found as I'm embracing the anger, which I know might sound weird, it's giving me the ability to also embrace the higher emotions as well, to a more fuller extent. So.
You said something so beautiful and powerful and moved pretty quickly from it, but the resignation of the past and then can you say that again? Or I know it's awful when somebody asks you to say again what you said.
Yeah, it sounded good.
It did sound good.
Yeah, instead of living in the resignation of the past and letting that paint my future.
What does that look like?
This is the way it's always been. Right, and so it's always going to continue this way. And then, but if I engage in the present moment, that's the stopgap. I can make the right action choice in the present moment. Mm-hmm.
What is it like to make the right action choice on behalf of yourself? I think it's easier for the 9 to make it on behalf of someone else, but what does it feel like when you're able to make right action on behalf of yourself?
I mean, I think partly why I'm saying embracing the anger, because the anger shows me what I need to pay attention to. So I found my anger usually resides in where I start doing things, and then I get angry because I realize I'm not doing the things I want to do. Okay. So that's probably my best explanation.
Yeah. And when they talk about the vice or the passion of the 9, it's the sloth, which is that idea of going to sleep to yourself and your own priorities. And so that's when that anger kicks in, is when you realize I've gone to sleep to everything that I want to do for me, should do for me, need to do for me, because I'm so busy out here attending to these other things.
I mean, I think that's how we narcissize. In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, and numb out is through doing better.
Oftentimes, self-preservation 9s, there's 3 subtypes that are attached to instincts, which we're not deep diving into that in this round of panels, but one type of 9, self-preservation 9, narcotizes through home and nest and comfort and self-preservation needs. One type of 9, the social 9, narcotizes through going out and on behalf of others, working and being connected. So they can actually look very busy and active and productive, but all of that can be in service of going to sleep to the thing that I should be doing for myself right now. And then 1-to-1 9s, it tends to be in union with somebody else. I lose myself in my partner or in my passion project or in my relationship with God in a way that I put so much attention there that I'm not working with some of the things that are coming up for me in this present moment that I need to address for me.
I'm 3 for 3.
3 for 3, baby. Knocking it
I
out
do
of the
them
park.
all. Yeah.
Denise, how about growth for you, if you want to share?
Growth for me, I used to spend a lot of time comparing myself to other people and just say, why can't I be more like that? Why can't I be more like that? Why can't I be more like that? And now learning more about the Enneagram, I can appreciate me for me, and all the things that I was wishing away are actually gifts that I can embrace. And about the being busy, I think I try to busy myself to kind of prove to myself and maybe other people around me that I'm not a sloth. And so I'm just doing, because look how busy I am, look how busy. I'm not a sloth. I'm not a sloth.
Yeah.
I'm not lazy.
Yeah, I never sit down all day.
I'm trying to make up for lost time because I feel like I was that kind of a sloth in my earlier years, and now it's like I want to keep working to prove to myself that I'm not lazy. So, yeah.
I was called lazy
Oh, I
all
was
of my
too.
life.
Yeah. Well, I was lazy.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so there's that shame that
Yeah.
I'm just trying to compensate for.
Exactly.
Let me ask you guys, kind of as we wrap up a little bit here, what do you want people to know about type 9 and how can we love you well?
I guess the easiest way is just like, what don't you want to do? We can do that. We can tell you what we absolutely don't want to do.
Yeah. You 9s do have very much contact with that. I can tell you don't want to do that. Yeah. Yeah. What about like in the birthday scenario, what if sometime nowhere near your actual birthday, somebody said, will you write down what like an ideal birthday would look like for you when it's not connected to the moment, or does that still not?
That's
I
still hard.
watched your face do the, I watched your teeth
I'm
go.
with you. I don't know. I don't know.
What am I going to feel like at my birthday? I don't know.
Okay, right, okay.
There's so many good options. Like that's where I get stuck.
I think that would be helpful for me, though.
For you?
Yeah, it feels like a little separation from being demanding and selfish. Like, I'll give those people a chance to prepare for that.
So would any of you like a surprise party or like
I mean,
being
maybe I would.
surprised?
I'd be happy with one.
Yeah.
I have enough ego, I'd like it.
Something small.
Make it about me for once. Yeah.
I think I've always wanted to be surprised. I don't want to know. I just want to be surprised because then I'd overthink it. I think about it.
Does it take the pressure off of having to make all those
'cause
decisions?
Then it just happens without me putting any energy into it. So but nobody's done that really. Well, I shouldn't say never, but yeah, I think that would be my ideal. Yeah. To not have to think about it.
So with that, the other 9s, do you wrestle with, oh, this is going to cost way too much. You're spending too much on
Oh,
it.
yeah.
What are other ways we can love our 9s well? Or just things you want people to know about what it's like to be a 9? Kelly, what just came up for you as the giggles came up?
It's great and it's hard. Yeah, like I really do love being a 9, and it's hard a lot of days. Like I think the energy thing is huge for
Can you
people
talk
to
about
know.
that? Yeah.
I mean, it's been said that we have the lowest energy of any numbers on the Enneagram. So we're inwardly boundaried and outwardly boundaried. So we don't want the world to affect us, and we don't want to affect the world. So that's just a ton of energy.
Yeah. So you've got energy going out to everyone, and then the rest of the energy is being used to like boundary both ways, like not going out too much, not letting too much come in.
Correct.
Are you exhausted all the time? All the time.
I used to be.
Yeah.
Oh, tell us more.
Yeah, I have more energy now in my 60s than I did in my 40s and 30s. I think it's just more of really honoring myself and like doing that inner work of I really value me, and I really do believe my presence matters now, and so that's energizing for me. But,
And you don't have to take so much energy to hold yourself in.
yeah, and part of it too is because I have more space because when I'm around, I have 5 children, and raising 5 kids, everything was about them. And even I noticed we did a big family vacation where we brought all of our 5 adult children and their partners together, and about the 3rd day into it, I was exhausted because it's like somebody said that for a 9, when I'm with you, I don't know myself, because when I'm with you, all I know is you. And there was a sense that I had, like, that just like sapped all my energy. I loved being with my kids, but about the 3rd day I was exhausted. And so I think that might help, not having them in my physical presence all the time. So it allows me to have more of that time to tend to myself. So people with younger children don't have that luxury, so it might be a little bit different battle.
And also 5 kids.
Then 5
Okay.
of them too. Yeah, right.
That's a lot.
Yeah, working 2 or 3 jobs trying to make it all happen. But then pastoring on top of that, yeah. A lot of other people to merge into.
A lot of other agendas.
Yeah. So I like to say, we 9s, we start off slow, and then we taper off.
But I sometimes find it to be that it's just pure. It is inertia in both senses, both directions. Like if I'm in the middle of a project, I don't want to finish it. I don't want no one interrupts me. It might be because if I can't finish it, that vacuum cleaner is going to stay there for days before I get back to it. So I hate stopping. But then also, like, to start is also hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to start.
Yeah,
it's hard
once
to
you
stop.
do go there,
Yeah.
you keep going. Yeah. Yeah. Any other things you want us to know about 9?
I think it is really helpful for people to ask me what my opinions are, to invite me into that so I don't feel like I'm intruding on them to offer it on my own. And I really do have some really deep feelings, not just opinions, but my own feelings, what hurts, that sort of thing. And so for the first time in my life, I've got 2 best friends, and we have those kind of conversations, and it's like, wow, that's what it's like. That's amazing. So, yeah.
I think nothing surprises me more than someone pursuing me.
Yeah.
And to be asked, I think that's so important, to be asked for our opinion. That's huge. Because right there is totally validating who we are, that we do have a presence, that question right there. But I guess it comes along with what I was thinking, someone pursuing me for what I think or how I feel. That, I think that just totally rocks my world a little bit, because it's kind of unusual. So it catches me by surprise, and I was sitting here thinking, how do I really react to that? Do I want to run away from it because it's so weird, or do I? But I think I'm learning to stay with it. Like, that's the process, right?
Step into it.
Yeah, step into it instead of retracting from it or doubting it, or, But yeah, I
Having
think
the
I want to be
anxiety around
surprised
it.
now. Yeah, I'm sorry?
Having the anxiety around it.
Yeah,
okay,
the
well,
anxiety.
if I offer my opinion, what if they don't agree with me?
Right.
What if they get angry about it and it creates conflict? And for me, it's anxiety producing.
And for me, the other anxiety about that is I have an opinion, then what am I going to do about it? And that disrupts my own inner harmony of like, well, just keep it all. So yeah.
Any final thoughts that you guys want to make sure you say before we wrap up?
9s do like their own time and space, and they need that.
And it's like, don't take it personally. Like we just
Where no one
really
else's
do.
opinions
Yeah.
are infringing on us. It's just we can just be alone.
Right, right. When you think about that, like just natural merging with everyone around you, it must be such a relief when you actually get to like close a door and not have that being pulled from you, and you can just pull it back into yourself a little bit. That's really helpful. All right, I'm gonna bring the panel to a close. I wanna thank each of you so much for being here to share with all of us. Yeah. And just the incredible wisdom and the courage to get up and again offer yourself to us. I know I can speak for everyone that your presence matters so much. We learn so much from you, and we're just so grateful to have you in our lives. So thank you for all of the work that you're doing and how you're showing up and sharing yourselves with the world. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. Yay.
So, thank you so much for this. This is so helpful. So there was something that was touched on a couple times briefly earlier that I'm really curious about, and the idea of the sense of injustice, or like this like passion for justice that comes out of a 9.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
So the question is the sense of injustice, and how does that show up for the 9?
Okay, so I'll say a real life example in my school, because I went ballistic on our chorus kids, because there's a group of kids, a large group of kids that were being totally disrespectful while there's a group performing on stage. And the way that they reacted and the way that they reacted to being disciplined enraged me. And I felt like I had to step up, and I was fuming with anger because I wanted them to know that that wasn't okay. But what I was getting, and I think I would have been calmer and not so angry if their response was less combative, or defensive. But it's me always looking out for, I've always looked out for the underdog. So if I felt, and this is how I felt that there are some students that probably thought they were laughing, being laughed at, being made fun of, or whatever, and that just made my inner part, just this fire burn inside. Like I felt like my stomach was turning, I felt hot, and I thought I better cool it down before I get myself into trouble, type of thing. But when I feel that someone's being wronged, and because I think we all have said that we're aware, we kind of gauge everyone, we're kind of figuring out, just really paying attention to everyone, because we have that gift. But when I see injustice going on, something like that, or someone stealing, or someone being mean to someone, or harassing someone, like in the school setting, I go nuts. I've been reprimanded before by the principal,
God, I really
too.
want to see that.
I know.
It's another side of me that just is.
And we have very deep convictions
Yes.
as 9s.
Yes.
So I've experienced that too. I don't know if it's the overlap with the 8. But I've had similar things in the church world that I really sense as injustice, and I still feel that. And it's interesting, I can muster up the energy for that, but I don't have a lot of energy for my own sense of my injustice on me. It's like, well, that's all right. But as long as we're fighting for this group over here, then yeah, I can speak out and lead the charge. So
I'm passive. I wear t-shirts that say things like empower women, fight racism, those types of things.
My sons play tackle football, and that's hard enough to watch your kids getting tackled. And my husband takes a lot of videos, and he was like, "Can you believe it? Keep an eye on the kid on the other team." He would tackle. My son is really good. He would carry the ball a lot, get tackled. There was a kid on the other team that was like punching him when he was down. I was so upset by that. I watched for this kid, marched up to his mother, showed her the video, and then but it was ugly. Like it wasn't. I should have not done anything. Not my proudest moment. But I could not let that sit. That was not right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I'm still trying to learn to access that 8, to see that anger really is needed, because that's the only way change really happens, is somebody gets angry enough. And it doesn't have to be ugly anger. There's an appropriate anger. And for me to numb out, I numb it all, the good as well as the not so good. So, but yeah, so I'm learning that I need that. If anything's going to happen for change, there's got to be enough energy to push through it.
You use the phrase wired, we're wired this way, we come into the world this way. So is it really a coping strategy that you're born with, or a coping mechanism that we all have come into this planet with to deal with the world? Is that essentially what's happening, whether you're a 4 or a 6 or?
It's our best strategy. So the question is this a strategy? This personality, is this a strategy? And that's exactly what it is. It's our best strategy for feeling loved, safe, and belonging. And the idea is that if you grow up in a really conscious, resourced family, you're still going to show up as your type in the world, but you will hopefully have encountered messages that, sweetheart, it's okay for you to share your opinion. And we're going to make plenty of space for that. So the need to use the structure to defend yourself all the time isn't as strong. Whereas if you grew up in a dangerous household, the need for that structure to armor you and to protect you from the overwhelm is just more entrenched, and more of a sense of, this is the only way I'm going to be okay. And so for all of us, there's work to do to continue to loosen it and have more freedom of choice in when we use it and when we can take it off and set it aside. When it's actually inhibiting the connection that we're longing for, and the very things for all of us that we're striving for, our type structure also is creating a dynamic of sabotage, right? The 9 saying, oh, I'm gonna pull back and withdraw, and then that's how someone will see me and come and get me. But it sabotages you from that because you've taken yourself out of the equation, and in a busy household, you just don't get seen. So all of the types have ways that we're doing that. The structure is supporting us and also sort of sabotaging us. And it's the overuse of the strength, this gift of intuiting what everyone's agendas and being able to adapt. Oh my gosh, what a tremendous strength, what a tremendous gift. But the overuse of it, where I no longer see myself as part of the equation, I don't even matter, that's where the suffering comes for you and for the people around you. And it's the same for all types have a version of that. Yeah.
It's just interesting to hear you all talk about being so moved by injustice. And I'm just curious, is it almost feels like you're offering to people what, that, filling in for people who are made to feel small, stepping in ways, does that track? Does it feel like that from the inside? Yeah, I'm just curious if it, I don't know, I just noticed in my type structure, I offer to others what I wanted offered to myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious if that is showing up in that way or a different way. I don't know.
I would say it's for me, yeah. I think that's generally probably true that, we offer what we hope we're going to get. And I think, too, you like other people to come, and then when they don't, then you get pissed. Yeah.
But it's I don't know, for me it's a bigger bubble. So it's not just necessarily about my number, but it's more of what's right and what's wrong, for me anyway. Not necessarily I'm more in tune with the 9s now because I've learned. Yeah, I think just in general, do you guys get really bothered when you see people being mean and selfish? And because that's so, I can be that way, believe me, but when it's unfolding in front of us, I feel like we all feel like we have to be the Cape Crusader and do something about it.
Is it just 8s and 9s that feel they have to be the protector of the injustices, or do other numbers have it too?
I think other numbers have it too in different ways and different courses of action around what you do with it.
And we may be tuned into a little different aspects of injustice. What's injustice for us? There could be some differences there.
Like, I'm triggered by when the dignity of another human is not respected, and by black and white thinking.
And I think too, nines are just more empathetic because they can see. And so for me, sometimes it's a physical hurt if I see something on the news or on my news feed or something. I feel it physically.
And I'm constantly striving, how do I harmonize these things? How do I bring peace to the world? And it's like, I can't do it. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, yeah. And when is it going to get better? And,
Right, yeah.
And
When is it?
why? And just the whole why? Why would people even treat each other this way? I don't understand that part of it. Even though I do understand that.
Yeah, I can remember when I was pastor and I'd be up in front of the congregation and the entry door was in the back and somebody new would walk in, that it just like, keep an eye on that person. They're here to cause trouble. And it was amazing how accurate that was once I started to tune in. I didn't go attack them or anything, but I would just kind of go with caution and observe and be kind of vigilant. And it was amazing how often that was accurate. Like there was just something
It's like you can tune into their energy or something.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah.
Driving forever, you can just sense that person had 2 stop signs ahead. You don't know why, but you just know they're not paying attention, even if they appear to pay attention. And you know somehow this innate feeling that they're gonna screw up or mess up, and you put your horn on, and thank God you did. Is it like that, but with everybody?
Maybe it's not even what they're going to be doing, but it's just like their motive, or what do they want, their intention, and not necessarily. I don't know. It's really hard to describe.
I think that word agenda is really key. Like, I know where what direction you're driving and what you want and how, that sense of agenda.
Yes.
And I would say there's some learned, because there would be times when I would pick that up, but I would be way too trusting anyways, because it would be like, again, probably that sense that the drive for harmony overrode the instinctual pay attention kind of a thing.
And that going to sleep to yourself, that like...
Right, fall asleep to that. Oh, sure, they can't be that bad, And really that's more about, I just don't want to be bothered.